Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the Aimchess Rapid in 2022. So this is it, the preliminaries are over, which means now we're getting to the quarterfinal stage. We're getting out to the knockout stage and only 8 players are left in the super event. At the end of the video I'm going to reveal you who is getting into the quarterfinal stage. But before we see who are the best players so far in this chess event, I wanted to show a really beautiful, sharp tactical game between two top prodigies from India. We have here Aditya Mittal against Gukesh. Both of them are only 16 years old, and when you watch now this game, you wouldn't guess that this is a 16-year-old battle, because this is spectacular, almost like a top grandmaster game, almost like watching maybe some top engines playing. Be prepared, this was simply chess from another dimension, really a wild, sharp tactical battle. So let's see now the game here. Aditya Mittal played with the white pieces and opened with the move d4. Gukesh's response was knight to f6. Mittal plays here c4, and we have now the move e6. After we move knight to f3, we have the anti-Nimzo or counter Nimzo Indian setup. We don't allow our opponent after move knight to c3 to get pinned immediately by the bishop on b4. So now after move d5, the game transposes into the Queen's Gambit decline. Knight to c3 here played by Mittal. The 3-knight variation, bishop to e7, pretty classical stuff. And now bishop to f4. This becomes now the so-called Harrwitz attack, and I've created sort of a mini series about the Harrwitz attack on my YouTube chess channel. If you want to follow this particular move order, this particular position, you can also check it out. Here's the link of our Queen's Gambit decline series, also where the Harrwitz attack is included. Maybe if you're interested into this position more, please check it out. I think you could have maybe a good preparation in this opening. So after move bishop to f4, we don't play bishop to g5 here. In my opinion, bishop to g5 should be maybe slightly more accurate, but bishop to f4 is a little bit more imbalanced, because in the beginning, okay, if you play bishop to g5, at least you're battling for the knight here. The knight is of course controlling the center of the board, so maybe when it comes to controlling the center, bishop to g5 should be more aggressive, but bishop to f4, it's really already spicing up the game. So after kingside castling, we have now e3, we have knight from b to d7, and now because black didn't play the move c5 himself, now my recommendation is also here to play the move c5, simply advancing here on the queen side. And now the idea is clear, we want to play b4, maybe a4, b5, expanding simply on the queen side, and also with the support of the bishop, with the support of the knight, you could have really here a great tactical battle. What black could maybe do is here to play knight h5, maybe kicking away your bishop here, because the bishop doesn't have good squares. You cannot use the d6, you cannot use the e5, you cannot also use the g3 square. If that happens, I'm just going to reveal a little bit of chess theory here. If that happens to you, if you're playing now the game from white perspective, my recommendation is just to continue with bishop to d3, although you're giving up kind of your bishop pair. But after bishop, the knight takes f4, e takes f4, still you have a great grip on dark squares, although you have lost the dark square bishop, but still you have a great control. And look at this now, when the knight left a little bit here the protection of the king, because notice that the knight is not protecting anymore the h7 square. Now you have opportunities maybe with queen to c2, knight to g5, knight to e5 to attack simply further the position on the king side, and you could have, I think, decent game. So don't worry so much about your dark square bishop here. That's the point about this line. But okay, after move c5, here c6 was played by Mittal. b6 could be an idea, but this is still risky. If your opponent doesn't play c6 here, then again you have this tricky idea. You have maybe this move here, you have c6 kicking with the knight. Now there is only one square for the knight, black has to retreat. Okay, you have sort of an isolated pawn, which can become actually a problem here. But actually with queen to a4, you can defend everything. And look at this, even if a6 b5 happens, black will never be able to play knight to b5 or something, because we'll simply take it out and the rook could be hanging on the a file. Maybe here in the continuation we just develop, even if your opponent continues maybe the pressure here with the move queen to e8, then you can play knight to e5, supporting simply the pawn on c6. And now again, maybe your opponent could chase the bishop, but now we just retreat. If knight takes g3 happens, for instance, h takes g3, notice now that also the h file is open, so there are several tactical threats here on this diagonal, and also here on this square. So maybe your opponent could try f6, but again, don't be scared so much about this position. Now you can even play a beautiful tactical shot, queen to c2, your opponent takes, now you play check, and now you play bishop to g6, also takes out here the knight. So really it can be a really tactical rich position for both sides. So please, as I said, study this opening more because it's quite interesting. There are really beautiful opportunities for both sides. But okay, after move c5, as we said, c6 has to be played. If your opponent doesn't play c6, if he plays b6, then he could have already so many positional problems. So here we have bishop to d3. We have now this normal idea of black is trying to expand simply on the queen side. Now is trying to break your space advantage, because I think the main advantage that we have here from white's perspective in this position is this advanced pawn on c5. So you have to break it now. Here from black's perspective, we have now b4, and you see black is continuing the pressure here with the move a5. We have now a3, and now black should play really an important defensive move. It's the move bishop to a6, and it's a beautiful trades of pieces here from black's perspective, because black has problems, of course, with the light square bishop. The light square bishop is blocked out here by its own pawn structure. So we can say really that this light square bishop is actually the worst minor piece of black's. When it comes to white's activity, we can say actually that the light square bishop of white's is actually the best minor piece on the board. So here black is giving up his worst minor piece for his opponent's best minor piece. That's the beauty about the move bishop to a6. Look at this now. White needs to trade it off. If you don't trade it off, if you play something like bishop to c2, you'll never be able to castle now on the king side. So that's why bishop to d3 is very important. And I myself like to go into this line with the white pieces. If you have followed maybe my lead chess side, I've played more than, I don't know, maybe 50 games in this particular position. I've reached many times this position, and it's a position that actually happened in the beautiful World Championship match in 2014 between Viswanathan Anand and Magnus Carlsen, where Vichy really destroyed Magnus Carlsen. I think it was the last time when Magnus Carlsen lost a World Championship match. Here this exactly position happened. Also Magnus Carlsen took, and now the beautiful goal of this opening is to push the pawn on b5, and that's the move that also Mittal played here. He advanced the pawn, creates now really some madness. Whatever you do, for instance, if you try to take, of course your rook is hanging, so you have to react now. If you take now the pawn, then you have this beautiful stunning move c6, and that's also the move that Vichy Anand played against Magnus Carlsen. Now the problem is the knight is hanging. You cannot retreat here to b8 because you get c7, the fork. So the only way to make something out of this position, you have to play defensive move queen to c8. And again, this is the move that the Gukesh also played, and also Magnus Carlsen played here the move, because now if you take the knight, then also your knight is hanging. It comes of course with check, and this pawn is then lost. Here we have an advantage on the queen side, and this should be then winning for black. So that's why after move c6, here in the continuation, Gukesh played queen to c8, never allowed to take out the knight. But now c7, and this is quite a spectacular position because this pawn is advanced. It's supported by the bishop, and the downside a little bit here for black is that actually with the move knight to b5, we'll be able also to take out the pawn on b5, or at least get the knight on b5, where at least the knight is also supporting this annoying pawn on c7. So basically every piece now of white is supporting the c7. In the near future we can also play rook to c1, simply trying to push the pawn further. And the idea of white is also to play in some occasions knight to b5, maybe knight to d6. If this bishop is not protecting the d6, then if knight to d6 happens, then with the support of the rook we can actually maybe here play also sort of a promotion. So many opportunities are here for white, although here black should be at least equal. Black has also great chances in the game. So here Gukesh plays the move b4, which is perfectly fine. You can also play an aggressive move, bishop to a3, because of course rook to a3 is not working. You get then here the move b4, but after move bishop to a3 we can actually play here knight to b5. Then you can play something like bishop to b4, we play king to e2, and again, okay, here black is up a pawn here on the queen side, but still I kind of don't like this annoying pawn here of whites. We can play queen to c2. We can in some occasions maybe even sacrifice some material, maybe sacrificing the rook for the bishop, and then again play this idea knight to d6, attacking the queen promotion here to c8. So again, this could be a very risky choice here for black. So in the continuation, after move c7, here we have sorry. We have here b4 by Gukesh. We have knight to b5, pretty standard stuff, protecting the pawn on c7. And now Gukesh simply expands here on the queen side. He plays now the move a4. We have rook to c1, and still we're in this position, Anand versus Carlsen back from 2014. And now comes also move that here Carlsen played, the Gukesh played now the move knight to e4, but now comes the stunner. Here Mittal plays a beautiful knight to g5, and the problem is now, actually you cannot take out here this knight, because as we said, if you take, like for instance Gukesh did here, this was a mistake by him. After bishop to g5, look at this now, knight to g5 is not possible, because here you get knight to d6 as we said, and then the queen has to move, and we just push the pawn, and we have now clear situation. So after move knight to g5 that Mittal played here, as I said, Gukesh took, although here you should play simply knight to f6. You have to play the game like this, you have to allow your opponent to be active here, but at least you're protecting the d6 square. You never allow this square for your opponent. If that happens, then it's game over for black. I'm not sure why Gukesh played this move, but from this point on, Mittal should be much better. In the continuation, we have now bishop to g5. B3 here was played by Gukesh. He simply advanced the pawn now, and here after move f3, the problem is now, again, you have to move the knight now. You have to leave the protection of the d6 square, and again, here white should be much better. But Gukesh plays now sort of a line, at least he's trying to compete here. He knows probably that here white should be better. At least he tried to attack now the position with the move rook to a5. Now we have queen to e2 by Mittal. He protects now the knight on b5, and now comes the stunner of the game, knight to c5. And this is a mistake, because we have to say it, if white now plays the game in the best moves, here white should be winning, because what the Mittal should have played now is simply here to play the move bishop to e7. Bishop to e7 is simply winning the game, because now when you retreat with the rook, we can play knight to d6. Look at this, as I said, when you lost the square d6, then I think the game is lost here, because you can maybe take the pawn on c7, but now we just grab the rook. You can maybe try sort of a fork, but now with king to d2, of course you cannot take so far the knight on d3, because the rook is hanging. You just play king to d2. You can maybe take. Now we take out also the queen. Black can also take out the queen, but in this scenario white should be better, because white is up a piece. Although probably black had some fun here with this 3 versus 1 situation, but I think white is fast enough to regroup, maybe to compete here on the b file. Regrouping, getting the bishop into the game, getting the knight into the game should be very powerful here for white, so it must be winning. But after move knight to c5 that Gukesh played, as I said, bishop to e7 was the winning move for Mittal. Here Mittal played d takes c5, and this was now the only chance for Gukesh to make something out of this position. He sacrificed the knight, but now look at this. After b takes c5, he gets another pawn into the game. Okay, he lost a piece, but now look at this. With c4, Gukesh will connect here 4 very powerful pawns. In the continuation, here Mittal tried bishop to e7 to maybe grab finally the pawn, because he's not allowing some kind of a Pawnstorm. But now c4 was played by Gukesh, and he sacrificed even the exchange, because okay, after bishop to f8 and here rook to b5, the knight is hanging now after move c4. Now okay, you can retreat, you can still stay with your bishop in the game, and okay, here white is up a whole rook. But actually this position is really not so easy to play, because now this Pawnstorm is coming, these 4 pawns here on the queen side, with the support of the rook, with the support of the knight. And we have to say it also, the rook on h1 is so far out of game, so it becomes now really a weird position for both sides. In the continuation, we have rook to b6 attacking the bishop. Mittal retreats now to g3, and now after move e5, look at this, the pawn on c7 is not protected anymore, and this is now suddenly really good position for black. So kingside castling, we have queen to c7, queen to b2, and now you see f6. But look at this now, really weird position. Gukesh has here all of his pawns still on the board. He still has 8 pawns on the board, although he lost his rook. But now I'm not sure how to survive this position, because this is really wild to defend. So in the continuation, we have now rook from f to d1. c1, queen to c6, bishop to f2. We have a rook to b8. So now Gukesh is playing the game really slowly here. He's trying now to not complicate things. He waits for his opportunity, maybe to advance the pawn, maybe even somehow to advance the pawn on d4. But so far, this square is very well protected by the rooks, by the bishop, by the queen. It's not so easy now to make something out of this beautiful Pawnstorm here that Gukesh created. So we have rook to d2, we have rook to b5, queen to c3, h6, h4, king to h8, we have h5. So here Mittal is paralyzing a little bit the king side by advancing the pawn. We have now queen to c5, and now of course queen to b2. So here Mittal waits for his chances. He waits maybe Gukesh to push the pawn and maybe weaken somehow the pawn. Maybe he will even sacrifice some material. Maybe he can sacrifice the rook for a knight in order to maybe slow down a little bit this Pawnstorm that's coming. But as I said, I'm not sure how to play even this game from White's perspective. I would not be sure even how to play the game from Black's perspective. It's such a complicated game to play now for both sides, and we have to say this is rapid chess. This can go wrong for both sides. So we have knight to f8, we have king to h2, knight to e6. Maybe here Gukesh is trying to advance the pawn on d4, but as I said, so far this square is protected. If d4 happens, and of course in a good way, then also c3 can happen, then also c2, maybe b2, b1, c1. So it's quite annoying now also, as I said, to play the game from White's perspective. So we have now g4, king to g8, we have queen to c6, queen to c3, queen to b7, and now after king to h2, basically no one wants to compete here, no one wants to make any risk here, no one wants to make a mistake. But after a move king to g1 here, king to f7 was played by Gukesh. So finally he's now also trying to include the king into the game. So we have rook to d1, king to e7, rook to c1, king to d6, and here maybe there is a chance for White to simplify the game. Maybe here Mittal could have gone into this line, queen to c4. Maybe this was sort of a drawish line. Then of course something like this could happen. Queen takes c4, rook takes c4. Now you advance the pawn. We just sacrifice the rook back, but now we can take out this one, and maybe this was a drawish line. We have at least this passer here. We can maybe play rook to a8 and advance the pawn, maybe include somehow the bishop into the game. Although probably even in this scenario Black should be slightly better because of the better pawn structure and the much more active king in the center. But as I said, this was maybe the chance. After move king to d6, here Mittal played king to h2, so he didn't go into this risky line with the move queen takes c4. We have king to e7, king to g1, king to f7, and now after rook to d1, rook to c5, rook to c1. Again, it's sort of a teasing position. We have king to g8, rook to d1, king to h7, rook to c1. So we have several repetitions by the rook move here by Mittal. We have knight to c7, and now comes the crucial mistake, queen to b4. Queen to b4 is not blocking out now anymore the c3 square. Here Gukesh sends some blood immediately and advances the pawn out c3. Now the game is over because the queen is also trapped. You notice that the queen doesn't have so many squares to escape. After rook to d1, we can attack the queen here with the move knight to a6, and the game is over. The queen doesn't have any squares to escape. Here in the continuation we have rook to c3, knight takes b4, we have rook to c5, queen to c5, a takes b4, but it doesn't matter. After move queen to c2 here, Mittal resigned because there is no simple defense against this b2, b1 moves. You have to also lose the tempo because your rook is hanging, so it's a position that you must resign. So really wild game, sacrificing some material just in order to get this beautiful Pawnstorm. But let's go back to this critical moment of the game. In my opinion, you have to be familiar with this line, bishop knight to g5, and after bishop to g5, look at this, bishop to g5, knight takes g5 is never a possibility because of knight to d6. Be careful. I've mentioned this in my series. As I said, please check out our Harrwitz attack series in our Queen's Gambit decline studies. This is quite spectacular, but it's a risky double-edged line that was played in the World Championship match between Vichy Anand and Magnus Carlsen, in which really Vichy destroyed also Magnus. But it's a risky line. If you don't know how the game can then it could be really scary to maybe reach this position where you saw also Gukesh sacrifice some material got a beautiful Pawnstorm, but eventually Mittal had also chances. He could have played the game better and won the game maybe much easier than he lost now in this brutal way. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. Really wild stuff what happened. Let's reveal now who is in the quarterfinal stage. Let's see the current standings of the preliminaries. We have here this situation. So Duda is here, Gukesh, Jozarov, Arjun Ergaisi, Magnus Carlsen. We have Naroditsky is also very powerful, Richard Rapport, and Vidit Santosh Guratsi. So we have here 3 players from India that will play in the quarterfinals. We have Duda. So in the first quarterfinals we have Duda versus Vidit, Rapport versus Gukesh, Jozarov versus Abdusatorov, and Magnus Carlsen versus Arjun Ergaisi. So this will be still a great intense quarterfinals. Then of course also beautiful semifinals, and then we have a beautiful superfinals of this very powerful chess event. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Harrwitz attack. If you want to see more about the Harrwitz attack, here's again our link of our Queen's Gambit Decline series. And if you want to see maybe some other commented chess games here on my YouTube chess channel, here's the link also of some other games that we have analyzed before. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.